It's James here from GoodGuitarist.com, and in today's lesson, I'm going to show you how to play Friends in Low Places by Garth Brooks. Let's just take a quick look at what we'll be learning today. This song has a ton of really cool elements. There's some flat picking, there are some bar chords, which are optional. I'll show you some easy ways to get around those. There's a bit of a walk up, the country bass kind of, that sort of strumming. There's so many awesome things in this song. It's a real workshop on country acoustic rhythm. So let's just dive right in. Let's just start at the very beginning of the song with our intro. We have our A chord here. And I'm going to pick, starting on the A string, just like that. Starting on the A string, and I just ascend. And it's really important to count this out, to go 1 and 2 and. And by the way, since there's so many elements in this tune, we're not going to take too much time to go over the chord shapes, except for the ones that are not so common. But for the basic ones like A, I have a free ebook. It's completely free to all my subscribers. I'll put a link to that down below so you can grab your copy, and that'll help you with all the fundamentals of guitar. Anyways, we have our A chord starting on the A string. The timing goes 1 and 2 and then we just let it ring out 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and all downstrokes. Then we're going to switch to a B flat diminished chord, which sounds crazy, but really, from our A chord, I'm lifting up my index and middle. My middle finger goes up one string, so that it's on the D string at the 2nd fret. And then my index goes to the 1st fret of the A string. And we would strum the top 5 strings if we were strumming it, but here we're flat picking it, and we're picking the A string, skipping the D string, and then going picking the top 3 strings. So 1 and 2 and. Same rhythm. Then we have a B minor 7 chord, and for that, I would use everything but my index to play a D shape. So making a D shape on the top 3 strings, my middle finger is on the 2nd fret of G, my pinky is on the 3rd fret of B, my ring finger is on the 2nd fret of the thinnest string, and my index plays the A string at the 2nd fret. And we pick those. And honestly, I find the B minor bar chord easier than doing that shape, just because I guess I've played bar chords enough. It's like a pretty common shape, so you're welcome to do that as well. But if you're not into bar chords, you can play that. It has this jazzy feel because it has that 7 in it. And then we switch to an E chord. So for that one, I'm plucking the thickest string, skipping the A string, and then playing the top 4 strings. Let's just take a look at the counting there so we can fit all those notes in. We're going 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. So our intro all together, I'm actually not going to play this with the metronome because this is something that needs to breathe. We call it rubato in music, and it means to kind of do things at your own pace or let it breathe. And we're just going to go 3 and 4 and 3 and 4 and 3 and 4 and 3 and 4 and then we begin the verse, and we're going to be using a lot of the same shapes, but the pattern, it changes constantly. And rather I don't think it's a good idea to memorize 16 measures of some random picking pattern, right? That's not going to make you a better musician. What is learning this pattern that I'm about to show you and then adding variation as you get comfortable with it. That's what the person who's on the recording is doing, They didn't plan I'm going to play it exactly like this. They're just I'm going to do this sort of thing. And then they're just maybe I'll change that as, on the fly, right? They're kind of doing some improv. Anyways, we have our A chord here, and I would go 1 and 2 and what we already did, but then I would come back and go between the two middle strings. So 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Just take a look at that, work it out at your own pace, and then we would apply that to our chord shapes. Blame it all on my roots. I showed up in boots, same pattern, and ruined your black tie affair. 2 times on B minor. And you can do the B minor bar chord or that B minor 7 alternative chord. And I'm just going to write out the chords here. And you just add that picking pattern to these chord shapes. And that's going to give you the verse. If you're not 100% familiar with the chords, you can go back a step and you can just strum them going 2, 3, 4. I showed up in boots. It's even a good idea to sing at this point since your rhythm is just downstrokes. Affair. The last one to know. The last one to show. Was the last one you thought you'd see there. And you just strum through them like that and sing. That's a great idea to kind of work your way into it and work on the song systematically. Anyways, that's the first half of the verse. And to that, we're going to add the second half. And you can see it's mostly the same stuff. There is a D minor chord in there as well. And one cool thing that we can add at the end, and don't worry, I'm going to play through this whole thing so you can see it all in context. But at the very end on that last measure of E, instead of picking it, we can go and play a walk up that kind of ramps up our energy and helps us transition into the chorus, which uses a strumming pattern and has a different feeling. So that lick goes on the thickest string, 0, 2, 4. Really, really simple. And I'm playing the 2nd fret with my index, the 4th fret with my ring finger. Either way, let's play through the entire verse now. And you're welcome to just watch. You can play downstrokes and just get the chords, or you can try the whole thing with me. 1, 2, 3, 4. So one more thing I'd like to point out before we move on is as you're applying that picking pattern to these shapes, you will have to change which strings you're picking. The pattern remains the same, except for that very first note. For instance, when we go to the E chord, I'm going to pick the thickest string. The rest of it remains the same, but the very first note, we're picking the thickest string. And for instance, when we go to the D minor chord, I'm going to shift that pattern over to the top 4 strings. Aside from those 2 exceptions, everything else is in the exact same spot. And with that out of the way, we can move on to the chorus. And the chorus is much simpler. We're going to start off on an A chord. I'm just going to write out the chords here. We do our strumming pattern 4 times on the A chord, a couple times on B minor, a couple times on E, and then back to A, A7, more B minor, E, and A. It's just a 3-chord song at this point. And You're welcome to strum through, where you just play downstrokes only 4 times per chord shape. Try singing. I got friends in low places where the whiskey drowns and the beer chases my blues away for 1, 2, 3, and I'll be okay for 1, 2. And here we could do our walk up on that E chord instead. And we're going to play through the entire chorus all at once so you can see this all happening. But I'll just put like a little star next to that E, just so you know you can do that, like, and it'll really, take it to the next level. The one chord in here that we haven't covered is A7. It's just like the B flat diminished except without our index. So my middle is on the 2nd fret of the D string, my ring finger's on the 2nd fret of the B string, A7 chord. Now, the part that, we really need to get to here is that country strumming style where we go. And we're going to break it down into 2 halves. First, I'm hitting the root of the chord on beat 1. So that's the A string. And then I'm doing a down up on 2 and. 1 and 2 and. Then I'm going to play the thickest string. 3 and 4 and. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. And we just alternate between those. You might even want to just go 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and, just playing the bass notes and counting out loud and then adding. We basically just play a down up on beats 2 and 4, right? So all in all, we're playing the root, down, up, and then what I would call the alternate bass note, or A in my little diagram, down, up. And then when we move to B minor, we can play our simpler version, or non-bar version. It's not necessarily simpler. And we're going to pluck the same strings. But we have to move our index down to the thickest string at the 2nd fret to get our alt. And if you're playing the bar chord, we can just have our finger a little bit higher to cover both strings at the 2nd fret. We just do that same thing. Root, down, up, alt, down, up. And for E, it's pretty much the same thing, but we're starting on the thickest string. Root, down, up, and then the alt is here on the A string. For A7, it's the same as A. So, we have 3, technically 4 because the A7, but it's almost an A chord. And, our pattern shifts depending on which chord we're doing. I'm going to play through the entire chorus now so you can see this thing in action. 1, 2, 3, 4. Whiskey drowns and the beer chases my blues away, and I'll be okay. I'm not big on social graces, think I'll slip on down to the oasis. Oh, I've got friends places. We stop just on a single strum of A, and that takes us back into another verse. Kind of calms the song down that way. Either way, that's it. The song is just those 2 parts, and they're not necessarily the simplest parts, but it is just 2 parts. The final chorus just repeats like a billion times, and it fades out. And if you have a whole crowd of people and you're able to do that, great. Otherwise, I recommend just kind of stopping with in low places, and that's it. Just the same way that we did it in this lesson. If you want to play along to the entire song with me, that's available for members of my All Access Pass. I have this song and a ton of others, as well as all my courses. So you get access to all my courses, and you also get a direct line to me, so you can ask me questions directly if you ever get stuck or anything like that. You know, that's all available in my All Access Pass. There's more info on that down below. Otherwise, don't forget to grab your copy of my free ebook. And if you enjoy learning guitar with me, subscribing to the channel, liking the video, let me know what you think in the comments down below. Otherwise, have a fun time practicing, and I'll see you soon.